Hey, DCKJ, gonna give you all a small little preview of my novel. Now, this is gonna be with a robotic voice because I am not gonna read it all the way up through. This would, if I put the whole thing up, it would be over 2.5 hours long. So I'm only gonna put up a few minutes worth. This is just a small preview of my novel. Let me know what you guys think.
Chapter 1. They had found them. She was not surprised they had the powers to do so. Her baby stirred from his sleep. "Mom, what is going on?" he asked as his voice was still doused with sleep. "Nothing, baby," Alicia reassured her child, "it's just Daddy's friends." She lifted him up and stared deep into his eyes and said to him, "Mason, no matter what happens, Dad and I love you." She planted a kiss on his forehead and then quickly stepped outside without looking back at him. Mason watched on as the last thing in his life walked out on him as his father had done. He then saw a man in a long black trench coat walk in. "Hi, my name is Ken, a friend of your parents, and I'm here to take you home." 7 years earlier, Alicia looked at her young son as he slept peacefully. She was so scared and deeply buried in thought at the same time. "The great family is nothing but trouble," she said to herself. Her poor baby had been so unlucky to be born into the elite family. She remembered his father, her great love Orton. He was so gentle, peace-loving and full of life. He had kept his origins away from her for a good reason. It was because she would not have accepted him with such baggage. They had lived peacefully in New York for quite some time. Then, on one fateful day, they came for him. They snatched him from her and her baby, and he never returned. A year after Orton had left, they came back to tell her he had died. She was shattered in pieces beyond words. Then they said they had to take her son to show him the family way. She was not going to allow them to take him away as they had done with his father. So she ran and was still running. She had to protect him from the same thing his father had tried to escape. "I still could not and would not forget they had taken all away from me, all," he said to himself. "My name is Mason, and this is my story, my past, my vengeance, and future," he concluded. "Master Ken had taken me to the manor. I'm grateful to him for raising and training me. He had told me everything I needed to know about the 12th generation family. Everything was all but confusing until I grew older. The 12th generation family. The 12th generation family was a complex family. The family came into existence after the war between supernaturals and humans had ended. The family consisted of every powerful member of a supernatural clan. Each clan had its own special power, but my father's clan, known as the Jada clan, was the only family with extraordinary powers that gave them the ability to harness the power of the other 11th generation. Their powers were the strongest, and the Jada clan was made the head of the 12th generation family. This was greeted by both support and disdain. Families that showed this disdain were exiled from the family and as such were left to live amongst humans. Uncle Ken had told me I was the one member of the 12th generation family because of my father, Orton. My bloodline was the strongest as the ability to harness the other 11 powers was inherited by the first generation. In it, there was the 8th generation of my clan. The Jada clan was gifted by the great god Ashik, who saw the Jada clan as the only clan that embraced peace. Uncle Ken had once said that the other clans were gifted with the powers to protect the Jada clan. This was one reason why some of the other clans were never pleased. Aside from the Jaka and Saban clan, the 12th generation families also had the Medial clan. This clan had the power to control the weather, and as such, they produced rain when the town needed it and sunlight when they also required it. The Isles, on the other hand, were warriors that possessed the power to transform into beast-like creatures in the situation of conflict. They were few and lived longer than the other clan. The WIAR could take on the full human form and mingle with humans when the 12th generation families required something from the human kingdom. The Ains clan comprised of the remaining clan. This clan housed magical creatures like the dwarfs, goblins, fairies, and so on. They had no magical powers in particular, but they were usually the happiest of the other clans. These clans lived as one, but they all feared the KOHR. They were not accepted into the families, and as such, the cause vowed to bring down the 12th-generation families. They controlled dark magic and were often regarded as witches. The beginning. Mason moved into the manor of the Generation family. There, he met other children from other clans. Mason and Ken were the last of the Jada clan, and they were highly respected at the manor. His stay at the manor was a restricted one, as Ken told Mason he has to train and know how to harness the 11 powers of the other clans. He was assigned an instructor aside from Ken himself. His name was Reeves. Reeves was from the Saban clan. This clan from generations past were always assigned to protecting the Jada clan because of their unfailing loyalty. Reeves was no exception. He and Mason got on well, but they became quite close, like brothers to each other, one they both never had the opportunity to have. Mason was rather nonchalant to mastering his powers and as such took all for levity and granted. He walked into the manor in search of Reeves. He wanted them both to attend a party together. "Hey, Reeves man, where are you?" Mason ran in, calling out his name. He ran into Nick the butler and asked about Reeves. Nick, in his usual curt manner, replied, "What is it you want, young master?" "I am just a butler who has his chores to worry about other than unruly spoiled children." Mason sensed there was something off about Nick. He shrugged and ignored him as he continued to search for Reeves. But first, he had to tell Uncle Ken about what he had. The dream. Mason woke up in shock and shifted. He saw a little boy crying for help as he sat 4 feet away from the bed, just thinking. He watched the light in the manor ebb away. He whispered to himself it was all a dream and nothing more, but he felt the urge to step out. In the dead of the night, a disturbing chorus that sounded like screaming echoed into the manor. Mason looked outside, and he could see the sky turning deep red. It was an unusual color for the night. He felt nothing but fear run through his entire being. He wondered where he was and why this was happening. He heard his mother call out to him. "Run," she had whispered. Mason was startled awake. His once comfortable king-size bed had become too restrictive and too warm. He was very disturbed. He sat up, blinking rapidly in his lazy attempt at gathering his bearing. This was still his bedroom. The manor remained the only home he knew. Reeves, he thought quickly. Maybe he had an answer to all that was happening. He stepped out of his room to the hallway. He was surprised the manor was unusually quiet. "Reeves," he whispered as he tapped rapidly on his room door. Mason didn't get a response. Now he felt nothing but fear. He opened the door slowly and realized Reeves was not in his room. The cries of terror grew louder, and Mason listened carefully in an attempt to determine where the screams were coming from. He had never heard anything like that. The noise stopped for a while. There was dead silence everywhere. This only aggravated Mason's fears. He ran out of the manor. He was shocked. Blood everywhere. Everyone had died. No one was left. He searched for Ken and Reeves. He could not find them, and then he realized he was all alone once again. The walls surrounding the manor was 3 feet deep. Mason looked on as they attempted to calculate his escape from the manor. Whatever that had caused that amount of bloodshed was still out to get him. The manor gates were stronger than usual, as though it had been made from solid iron by a spell casted. The gates also felt locked, like he was bolted in from the outside. And there he looked down to his feet that had refused to move, and he saw what he had not seen before: long rusty chains binding both his legs to a bracket in the wall of the gates. Escape was totally impossible. Nearly. The dream had unsettled Mason. He needed an explanation, one only Uncle Ken could give him, so he searched for his uncle. "There you are," he said. Uncle Ken had been in the family library. Ken knew the burden of being the sole heir to it all was heavy on Mason. He saw his loneliness whenever he looked into the little boy's eyes. All he could do was to be the family Mason never had or enjoyed. He looked at Mason and knew he was troubled. "What's wrong?" he asked. Mason explained all that had happened in his dream and how he thought of being alone once again unsettled him. Ken put a hand on Mason's shoulders and informed him that he had to prepare for the dangers of the future. He told him the 12 great families had traitors in the past that were banished to the human world, and these traitors would seek revenge by all means necessary and possible. He questioned Mason's dedication to the 12 great generation families, as soon he would be the mage in charge of all families. Mason looked at his uncle and understood his concern. He could not agree more.